A brand is a name, term, design, or symbol that identifies a seller's goods or services and distinguishes them from competitors. The functions of branding include developing a unique identity, creating trust, fostering customer loyalty, and creating or storing value. The best companies, the best brands get this. Brands give businesses a unique voice and an identity. Branding builds credibility and fosters customer loyalty over time and creates value for companies, their products, shareholders, and consumers. Welcome to CFO IQ, where CFOs share insights and intelligence on innovative growth strategies and the experiences that drive success for their companies and themselves. I'm your host, Andy Zizas, and I'm happy to be with you today. The world's biggest brands by value are dominated by technology companies, those you would imagine: Apple, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, NVIDIA. They consistently hold top positions in global rankings. Other major global brands span industries from retail to automotive and finance. Major consulting firms release annual rankings based on brand value, which combines financial performance, brand strength, and the brand's influence on consumer choice. While the technology sector currently leads brand rankings, other major brands lead specific industries globally, especially those in the luxury goods and consumer categories. Today, we're joined by Virginie Costa, a global CFO whose career has been squarely focused on some of the most recognizable luxury brands in the world. Virginie served as CFO for such great companies and great brands as Wella, Godiva, Burberry, Mondelez, and Hermes. Virginie, I'm so glad you're here to share with us your perspectives and with our CFO IQ audience. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Andy. It's a pleasure to be here. And as you said, I've spent my career really focusing on brands and branding and really understanding what brand value means and how you can combine emotion, discipline, and financial rigor to build exactly enduring brand that will really continue forever.
Emotion and financial rigor. I love that. Oh, all right. So with that, let's talk about brand. So you were at Burberry, where all the companies you were with are fantastic companies. At Burberry, though, you were instrumental in repositioning that brand. And what I loved was the description you used was you were instrumental in repositioning it from aspirational to luxury. So share with us, what do you mean by aspirational to luxury? What does that mean?
So basically, it means when you have a good brand equity, but you're not consistent with it. That creates aspiration, but that's not yet the full luxury product. So like things like too many promotions or being too dependent on certain wholesale accounts, that create that disparity in that consistency. So as a CFO, the role is exactly to make sure that that transformation is financially sustainable and will exactly answer the brand's need. So what we've done with Burberry is that we've shifted volume out of some of our wholesale exposure, some of our promotional items, and we moved it to become more full price, limiting the markdown as a percentage of net revenue is the sort of things that you can think of as a CFO. And investment for the brand, because you need also to create that experience for the consumer, especially in the physical space, but also very important in the digital space as well, to create that consistency into your experience. So as a CFO, what are you tracking to make sure you're moving into the right direction? You're tracking your gross margin expansion thanks to limited promotions. You look at your full price sales through, i.e., how many actual consumers bought the product, not just the wholesale account, as an example. And you also have softer metrics like brand awareness, net promoter score, this sort of indication. And then, the social awareness that you build on social and on your digital. So these are the elements that, as a CFO working for brands, these are some of the elements that help you move from aspirational to luxury, and consistency is key.
And those are the metrics you would use to determine whether the repositioning effort either succeeded or failed, I would imagine.
Exactly right. Because when you see your margin progressing and you see markdown reduction, you really see the return on investment that starts to build. So a way also to look at it is that we look at those metrics very regularly on a monthly and quarterly basis, obviously. And if you see a few quarters in a row that the data doesn't show that progress, then you adjust. And that can, brand repositioning for me, it's like it's as important as your research and development areas, if you will, because that's really what creates the value and the equity.
Excellent, excellent. So I've heard you talk about real estate, and that
Uh-huh.
real estate more than just buildings, and that with luxury brands, real estate is more about creating an experience that aligns with the brand identity. When you expanded Hermes from, I think it was 8 to 17 stores, is that correct?
Yes, that's
So
correct.
so how did you financially model the trade-off between market penetration and brand exclusivity? And what was the basis for saying no to one location or the other?
Absolutely not. This is key. This is a very good question, Andy, because what's happening today is that if you think about the consumer journey, when you hear about something, a product, you check it first on digital. So the web presentation of your brand is actually a real estate in itself, because it does need to convey all the brand values, the brand purpose, what the brand stands for, the same way as you will see on your iPad and your iPhone, as you see it in the physical space of the store.
Hmm.
So when looking at the expansion, and it was a very rapid, fast-paced expansion, we used a lot of different criteria. The first piece is the size of the space. You know that you cannot express your brands under a certain number of square feet. The adjacencies. If I'm sitting next to a deli, it's not the same as if I'm sitting next to the most luxurious casino entrance, as an example.
Mm.
And so you would list, all those brand must have, and that's what you drive in your negotiations with landlord.
Mm.
So each location, has its own specificity, and a luxury brand does recognize exactly the importance of being that consistent, yet creating a local appeal. So and unlocking and empowering the store to have a certain merchandising, a certain list of products. And as a CFO, I measured my okay to go also based on the expected return on investment. So we did create, specific ROI, specific EBIT percentage on net revenue. We had a few criteria this way to make sure that not only I was creating the right space for the brand to be able to express itself, but I'm also, continuing to develop the brand sustainably and profitably, obviously.
Mm.
So you ask me, how do I say no? I would say no, of course, if the financials don't meet those criterias, which meant basically to go back to the negotiation table and renegotiate your whole lease. But also, I would say no if it's too close to a store that is always on markdown, as an example, because exactly my adjacency, I'm creating full price, so I cannot be sitting this way. Or if it's too transactional, i.e., there's a lot of traffic, but not enough time to really express and communicate the story of the brand, which is about that craftsmanship. So these would be the no's basically. But yeah, the real estate, and think real estate, digital, social, physical, all of this needs to be consistent.
Huh. So you talked about different types of brands in that explanation, and you yourself have been with very different types of brands.
Mhm.
Take Hermes and Godiva, for example. Both are luxury brands, well known globally, but
Mhm.
one brand focuses more on scarcity and the other on accessibility, right? So how did you approach protecting brand equity in those two very different companies?
It's a very good one, actually, because you're right. These are two luxury brands, but the way they express themselves is very different. To your point,
Mm.
so what I learned is that at Hermes, definitely, what matters is the exclusivity, and the way as a CFO I was able to control that would be continue to drive up the margin, right, the gross margin expansion. At Godiva, what was more important is to create that experience of an indulgence, yet it's very strong, quality, and that brand story is about the craftsmanship. So what we needed to do was more to look at velocity, repeat purchases,
Mm.
traffic at certain holiday session, because chocolate goes with some Happy Valentine's Day, goes with the end of the school year. You're gifting a box of chocolate. The holiday season obviously is very high. So velocity and repeat purchases are also metrics and indicators that helps you when you need to be creating a premium experience. Yet this is an indulgence, so the presence of it is quite large. But there is ways to measure that you keep up with that premium presence.
Mm. Mm. So, all right, so that makes a lot of sense to me. I was thinking about one of the other brands that you worked with, Burberry, which had a different kind of story.
Mhm.
If I go back to the early 2000s, Burberry dealt with a lot of counterfeit products, which ended up
Mhm.
diluting the brand. So,
Mhm.
in a case like that, what financial guardrails would you recommend that other CFOs implement to prevent over distribution from an eroding brand value and the dilution that happens when you're dealing with counterfeit?
Yes, that's a very important point. So, the really, what is a threat to a brand, especially those that want to drive premium pricing and premium presence, over distribution in general is a killer. If I am, as you said, if I am too exposed, or you see my product counterfeited everywhere, this is over distribution, and this is, to your point, very dilutive.
Yeah.
So to prevent that, I would build certain guardrails. As an example, I would say for Burberry, I would say X percentage of my net revenue is okay to be distributed in wholesale. X percentage of the net revenue should come from an outlet because it's a fashion brand. So you need the outlet, and it doesn't dilute by principle the brand. However, you want to make sure that you create some exclusivity even for end of season product sales. Yeah, those are the type of guardrails. Sell-in and sell-out are two other metrics that we measure as well. And at Burberry, as there is a large presence, necessary presence, with accounts like Neiman Marcus or Bloomingdale's, you need to have that presence. So, however, you want to make sure that the way it's presented will create that same experience. And then your sell out will be really what matters, because it's how did it resonate with the end consumer. So brand damage, it's measurable, It is, expressed as a margin compression, digital price expansion, level of promotions. And for Burberry, every single point of margin loss linked to that channel over distribution is actually really, you can translate that into your brand value at the end of the day. And that is what the financial language, a board will respond to and understands.
Hmm. All right, so that makes a lot of sense to me. Y- When you were at Hermes, you've said that you learned the art of retail. So with that in mind, tell me what's one thing that every CFO should understand about brand building in retail that does not show up in financial statements but impacts value?
Absolutely. When you talk about brand building, um, numbers don't capture the emotion. That
Right.
that is a very difficult thing to do. But when you are brand building, emotion will drive future cash flow. So for me, a client, especially at Hermes is a very good example because this is probably the highest prices that you can think of in that space. So a client might walk into my Hermes store today, may not buy today, may buy later. So I do need to continue and create that experience on a consistent basis.
Hmm.
So a CFO brand builder, first, you need to consider yourself as a brand steward. We are here to protect the brand. And that is essential because that also will drive future cash flows. So one advice I have for any finance professional out there is experience it yourself. Go to the store or go wherever your product is present and experience it as if you are the end consumer.
Sure.
What appealed to you, what was not that appealing, and understanding then the velocity, understanding the traffic metrics. So that would be one big advice: experience it yourself.
Well,
The other piece is in retail, and that I learned, and I taught a lot of my professional teams. Go and spend a full week in the store as an employee of the store, and touch all the different functions that exist, from being the cash register person, being the merchandiser, that put the product on the shelves, being on the back office, how you clean it up, as you safeguard everything because you have like millions in your back office, and sales associate. And if you do intern and shadow the people that know, then you will understand the art of retail. And more importantly, you will be able to really put the right guardrails and the right metrics in place, depending on exactly where you are on that journey of brand builder. So it's all about really understanding the brand values yourself, experience it yourself, and sell it yourself, and then you're equipped. You know what the brand stands for.
well, since so much of what you're saying about brands has to do with the experience, it makes a lot of sense that as CFO, you should participate in the experience. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So let's talk about brand equity, something
Hmm.
that's typically very difficult to measure.
Hmm.
Talk about the financial frameworks or the KPIs that you've used to track whether brand investments at companies like Hermes and Burberry or others are actually translating into enterprise value.
Right. Right. So, the brand value will translate very easily to your company valuation. So they actually go hand in hand, very, very importantly. So the way I look at it always is, I will have a dashboard that has the financial metrics we spoke about earlier, but also the brand metrics and the customer/consumer metrics,
Oh.
because that will give you in one document both the very hard, tangible elements, like, is my profit going up, is my net sales going up, but you will provide on the same document, oh, my brand score has improved or has decreased. And there are a lot of different, you can be assisted with specific, marketing services that measure your brand value out there. So you can report it on a regular basis. And so if I have all my sales up, and I talked to you earlier about my wholesale guardrail as a percentage of net revenue, let's say on that dashboard, I'm up on sales, but I'm in my wholesale now exposure is greater. And hey, by the way, my brand score has started to change. So when you have that in one sheet of paper, it's very clear what's going on. It's very clear how I am driving or not, and if that goes into the right direction.
Huh. So, Virginie, one of the things that's impressed me about your career is you've always been focused on brand, of course, but you've gone from one extreme to the other, from Hermes super high luxury to the other extreme, managing Oreo and Rich Cracker when you were Mondelez. You couldn't be more different in or more diverse in your career. These are household names with very, very different brand architectures than the companies you've been with in the past. So how does a CFO's approach to guarding brand integrity differ when you're talking about super high luxury and mass market consumer products? And
Yeah,
and
right.
and, and actually, tell if you would also share with us, where are the financial risks most often overlooked?
That is sure. So you're absolutely right. The CPG world is not the same as the high-end luxury. Oreo and Ritz, the success of those brands is measured by the market share. It's measured by the scale, the affordability, the scalability. And you're right, Hermes is more about patience, scarcity, exclusivity, and a lot of storytelling.
Mm.
So what you do is like it's interesting because we are still dealing with consumer brands. So there are still, for me as a CFO, elements to consider in a brand like Oreo. And Mondelez had brands like mass markets, but they also have more premium product like the Tate's cookies from the Northeast. And so you're talking about brands. So at the end of the day, everything I said before is applicable both for Mondelez brands as it is for an Hermes. It's like you have to understand what is your velocity, your market share, the level of percentage of net revenue driven by an overdilutive potentially channel. If you do and you keep that discipline the same way, you will drive the brand DNA, and with that, as we said earlier, it will translate into valuation multiples. So you will have to spend that same time to understand the different brands' equity. I traveled, in all of the different expressions of the brand. When you're at Costco, it's not the same as Walmart. It's not the same as in a 7-Eleven. Like it takes various forms. However, you have to be consistent. It's the same story. You have to be consistent. You have to make sure that the experience is also what corresponds to the brand heritage, and you go from there. So in both cases, CPGI and luxury, it requires data discipline and deep respect for that brand DNA.
So same discipline, recognition of the type of brand you're dealing with, and I guess, focusing on the experience in the case of Oreo, having a lot of Oreo cookies delivered to your house.
Exactly. Exactly.
I
Yes.
think I want that job.
Yes, the most challenging times when you're in a role like this is when you have to do the testing of the
Yeah,
next season
yeah.
products. I have to say it's hard to resist.
I can appreciate that. Yeah. All right. So I want to take you back to Burberry for a moment.
Mhm.
There was a point when Burberry spent, I think the number was around $900 million trying to become an ultra luxury brand, and many analysts would consider their efforts to have been a failure. From a CFO's perspective, what are the warning signs that a brand repositioning is burning cash without building equity? And how do you advise boards when a brand strategy and financial reality diverge?
Sure. So there are a lot of different things that you can think of. Some of the warning signs will be your declining traffic. That is something to consider and to understand. It's also about your gross margin does not expand, is flat. That is another warning sign.
Oh,
Another warning sign is price increases that the customer doesn't buy in. That shows that then there is some resistance that needs to be taken into account. So you have to call it early, and that's why I'm a big proponent of those dashboards that are not filled with 1,000 numbers on a document, but very focused on what exactly is the brand equity metrics.
oh,
And if you have that as part of your financial discipline and rigor and routine, you will call it early because those changes are very apparent quickly and easily, and then that will help you re-anchor your strategy if it didn't go exactly where you wanted it to be, and you will redefine it around exactly your heritage, what you stands for, your quality,
good.
and the pricing power.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense to me. I keep thinking about M&A in the branded industry, if you will, in the branded goods industry. M&A is a very important part of what happens with branded goods. Talk about your due diligence process for brand compatibility when it comes to acquisitions.
It has to be part of your due diligence process, 100%.
Mm,
Because each potential, acquisition can have a equity impact to your existing brands.
mm,
Or you could see customer overlap, which is another potential problem, or at least needs to be taken into account into your payback calculations.
mm,
And you have to think through, will it be margin accretive or dilutive? And that is also an important point to take into account. So anytime I do modeling for brand acquisitions, I will model the cannibalization, the integration cost, and the incremental brand value as well. So all of this will go into the decision making process.
mm.
The goal is, you don't want to buy just volume because that would be easy, but buy synergy and buy story. You need to be able to tell the story of the brand you buy, and it needs to be complementary to your existing business as much as possible. So you buy the synergy, the story, and this is how you keep a portfolio sustainable and profitable.
Is that what you did at Wella?
Yeah, Wella, we did the acquisition of a vegan hair care company. And what we bought with it then was the vegan hair care, which was a portfolio element that was not existing before. And the other piece is it was driving premium visibility because that brand was largely present in Sephora or Ulta, which were two big accounts that other Wella brands wanted to get in, and were there, but not necessarily with the experience that they wanted. So it was, like I said, it was the synergy and the story, and and that was a success.
Hmm. Now, I keep coming back to Burberry and my thoughts in our conversation. You talked about distribution, right? And we've already talked about retail locations, but distribution strategy that can make or break a brand. And
Yeah.
we know that Burberry makes roughly what $1 billion a year from outlets. And some experts say that outlets might undermine positioning of a luxury brand. How do you model the long-term brand cost of short-term revenue streams like outlet sales and mass distribution?
Right. So it's all about trade-off, because outlets, they're great. They have a purpose. For a brand like Burberry, the purpose is we're dealing with a very regular, product that comes every season. But in the apparel space, as an example, I'm driving also fashion, and fashion is quite, fast paced. And you need to have a possibility, a presence somewhere to be able to continue and express the brand, even if it's not part of the season. It's an end of season of prior periods. And this is very important to have a space for those products, because you don't want to just all of this going to waste. Now, you need to monitor this very, very precisely. And the way we looked at it was also in the outlet, how much is sold through at the ticket price. So that was my indicator. If I had too much promotions inside the outlet, then that was a warning sign. So these were the guardrails that help you, using outlets the right way. But it is to clear inventory. It's never to train your consumer to wait for the discount. So that's where the balance is. Like, you don't want people to just wait for Black Friday. You want them comfortable coming anytime in the year. So these are the type of things I would look at and put on my dashboard.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot. We've talked about real estate. We've talked about distribution strategy, and we've talked a lot about experiences. And I'd like to understand, how do you quantify ROI when you're looking to create, when a brand is looking to create unforgettable customer experiences, and talk about how you value intangible heritage.
Right. The experience ROI, it has to be a blend of your financial and your emotional metrics. Like we talked earlier about, things like promoter score or earned media value would be indicators that I'm going in the right direction. Heritage is a trust capital that is intangible, doesn't show up on the balance sheet.
Hmm.
However, what you are driving and how you can, another way to, let's put it this way, another way to measure the success of my investments in the brand, I would compare myself to my peers. And I would compare my financial results to my peers. Always, because we are in a very competitive landscape everywhere. So I will take, the quarterly filings I can put my hands on, or investors presentations, and I would compare also. You have a lot of exchanges when you are in the store. People talk, and you compare your traffic metrics, and you talk about those things, and you're able to, without disturbing any confidential items, you are able to really compare yourself to the others, and with that, really identifying if you're going in the right direction.
Hmm. Virginie, I have to tell you, I've only had the pleasure of knowing you for a short time, but each time we talk, I learned something new, and it means a lot. I've learned a lot from you in this conversation today. I really appreciate you being with us. I want to thank you very, very much for speaking with such candor. I love your energy. I love your excitement about brand and luxury goods and consumer goods. I'm sure our audience, and specifically your CFO peers who watch this interview, will get a lot out of today's interview, just like I did. And it's true, even though I still don't qualify to purchase an Hermes bag.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Andy. It was a pleasure. It was a very good conversation. As you've heard, I truly believe that finance and creativity and emotion can work hand in hand, which brings energy, definitely. When the CFO truly understands the brand value, that's when value creation happens and becomes sustainable.
Well, and you've proven that time and time again, and I'm sure you'll prove it again in your next role.
Thank you.
Virginie, thanks for being with us today. I truly appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you too for joining us today on CFO IQ. If you'd like to learn more about Virginie Costa, visit us at cfoiq.com. If you'd like to be considered for a CFO IQ interview or for a business story to appear in CFO Intelligence magazine, or if you just have topics you'd like us to address, email me at andrew.thesis@cfointel.com, Intel with 2 L's, and let me know your ideas. Join us again here on CFO IQ for our next exciting CFO interview. Thanks very much for joining us here. I'm Andrew Zizas. For CFO IQ, you keep thinking.
For booking inquiries, please visit www.cfoiq.com or email andrew.zizas@cfointell.com.